Have Williams been too hot this season? Did Kimi punt Max into George's seat? Welcome to Tinfoil Helmets, your occasional spicy hot take roundup of the latest F1 rumours, all with almost believable conspiracy theories to back them up. Everything here is carefully researched for hours to make sure it is totally founded in logic, reason, and truth. Or not. Who knows? Have we got anything right?
I think this was one of our better prediction weekends.
In a long time, we have successfully achieved some spicy takes that were correct. We manifested it. I'll start off with, I said Kimi was going to bin it as he falls from grace from his podium finish in Canada. And he fell from grace, and he absolutely binned it, and it was perfect.
It took technically 3 corners.
Three corners.
Technically 2 corners, because he didn't make the third.
Less than 30 seconds.
Yes.
Perfect. But we will save what he did and the outrage that he will cause because of that.
I will take one small issue with your prediction, and Kimi falling from grace implies that he was in an elevated position, and maybe he shouldn't have been.
Where did he start? Like 9th?
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Wasn't good.
It wasn't good. I also said that Lewis would win because Christ, he needs it. He may have emotionally won because it was his highest finishing position, second equal highest finishing position for Ferrari of the season, but it wasn't great. And he had an argument with his radio person again, but we'll talk about that later. So I was disappointed. And then last but not least, in my most brilliant prediction that would have been fantastic if it actually happened, I said the McLaren's going to go nowhere because their car gets neutered by some sort of weird regulation thing. But it turns out instead of being neutered, they just jacked up on the steroids.
Yeah, they were... It's amazing they are this untouchable at the end of a formula. Because normally at the end of the formula, all the cars are really close. This is insane that they are this far ahead. It'll be interesting to see how this plays into the next season. Where are there any tricks of the trade that they've learned with tire cooling and stuff, and how will that play into? I guess we'll see what tire life is like in the new reg of cars, and if their potential phase change materials are still.
It is very fascinating how well that has worked out for them in actual fact, like the impact it seems to have had upon the driving, and it'll be interesting to see whether other people manage to pick up on it. Because if they have got it, the question is how long can they maintain that advantage for?
Well, the other thing also is like if it is phase change materials, which I think now we're pretty certain it's the phase change materials. As they mentioned, it's hard for somebody to copy because you have to get like the material just right to phase change at just the right temperature to keep everything in the working window. So on the flip side of that, if the next generation of cars, the working window is slightly different, or the phase change, or so you need it to be at a different temperature, then it all goes out the window, and now everybody's kind of back to the same page of how do we get, if we're going to put phase changing materials in our brakes, how do we do this?
Which raises a really interesting question. How did they work it out? How did they work out what the temperature was that they needed? Did they have a secret off the books of tire test where they took some stolen tires and made something unique with it? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I don't think it's that crazy to figure out. I mean, you know where they are around qualifying. You know where they are when they overheat. Like, I think it makes sense.
Maybe it takes them just a few races next year. Maybe by the time they get to the first round of upgrades, they'll have dialed the temperature back in again.
Well, because it's not only that, but you might have to like adjust the material in order to get it to
True.
And that's where the challenge lies. It's not necessarily we know where the temperature is, because if they overshoot it and like it, or if they undershoot it, I guess, so at a lower temperature, like where everything doesn't work at that temperature, it could just all go colossally wrong.
Yeah,
because then everything's too cold.
Indeed. You predicted rain.
I did.
And the teams were told that due to severe weather, they would be allowed to keep the doors open on their garage, close the doors on their garage on Friday. And I was like, here comes the rain. And then it was fine, and it was beautiful and sunny.
Yeah, it was, the hills are alive with the sound of music and all that, or Formula One engines in this case.
Exactly. It's terrible.
And
unacceptable.
I predicted there was turn 3 drama, and there was a decent amount of turn 3 drama, but I also forgot turn 4 and 5 exist as well, because that whole back half of the course usually is a great drama predictor. I did see that Austria is going to be on the calendar until 2041, and that's just fantastic news.
I like Austria, and I think it's a great track, and I think it's fun, and it always brings something to it, but I do feel that 2041 is quite a long time. There needs to be a bit more jeopardy in it.
No.
Okay.
I mean, okay. I like the thought, but like in in this day and age of Formula One, where so many of our beloved tracks are, oh well, we can't race here anymore because the cars are too big, the cars are too this, this track doesn't provide for good racing, or there's a Middle Eastern country that wants to throw a bunch of their oil money at us, so we're going to let them have a race, and then we're going to cannibalize some of the classic, more historic races because of it. Like, it's nice to see that a racetrack that does have some pedigree to it. I know it's not the oldest, most raced around Formula One track, but it's been around for a while. And the fact that it'll still be here for a while is, I think, a pretty good thing.
Okay. Well,
did you see that the track was suddenly 8 meters longer this year? No, shorter. Longer.
I did not. What is this?
It was shorter?
Did they squish it to give the bump before the McLaren pit stop?
So apparently I think it's 8 meters shorter. Yeah. So it was an 8 meters shorter, and the whole thing is it's measured on the center of the track is how they calculate the distance.
Oh.
And they did so it's not calculated by the racing line, it's calculated by the center of the track.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think they did some sort of new scan of the track, maybe for some video game or something like that, because they do these high fidelity scans from time and time again. And they're like, oh, this track is 8 meters shorter than we thought it was. And it could also be that they might have reprofiled some corners ever so slightly, like where they put the paint, and that can adjust where the center line is. So there just could have been some natural shift in the topography of the landscape that caused the track to shrink or grow a little, or shrink a little bit. But yeah, the track was 8 meters shorter this year.
Interesting. They feel like almost implicitly that suggests that the fastest lap should have been a fastest lap. I know it's not the racing line, but I feel even overall that there was something in there that 0.1 of a millisecond faster or something.
Yeah, it's it's very funny that they rock up to the FIA rocks up the Formula One race, and the Red Bull ring is like, hey, fun fact, it's not as long as you think it is. It's 8 meters shorter. Just letting you know, by the way. Hope this won't change anything. Bye.
Suspicious. Maybe it's Red Bull trying to get their advantage from owning the track. Seeing as that's a bit of drama, shall we see what between race drama there was?
Let's talk about it.
First off, the F1 movie came out, and there's wall-to-wall promotion everywhere. There was if you have the Apple Pay wallet thing up, you got a little push notification telling you could get a discount. And then if you opened up the TV app starting yesterday, there was a full-screen modal dialogue. And then there was all of the social media content was F1. And then there was a whole bunch of stuff, I think, in the pre-race build-up that was all about the F1. So just in case you hadn't noticed, there's an F1 movie out.
Oh, there's an F1 movie out. Who's in it?
There is. Lewis and Charles and Max and Franco and Liam and Yuki and Brad Pitt and the other guy, Damson. No, that's the character. I've forgotten the actor's name who plays the other driver.
Yeah,
it's fine. And so apparently it's not a terrible film. Apparently the description that I've heard is it's Top Gun but with cars, which makes me disappointed because that's Days of Thunder, which coincidentally this weekend is the 35th anniversary of Days of Thunder.
Which is also a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, although technically it was Jerry Bruckheimer, Don Simpson at the time.
And technically, also this time, it was Jerry Bruckheimer was the executive producer. The director was Joseph.
Oh, Jerry Bruckheimer's always been the money man.
Okay, yeah. So suspicious.
But he does have a type of movie he makes.
Yes, and I support.
Generally, they're pretty fun. I wouldn't say good. They're
shows.
sometimes good, but they're fun.
They're enjoyable.
They're very enjoyable.
Good escapism, and I love when he does CSI. CSI was great. OG CSI was great. CSI Miami was okay, but CSI New York was not it. So that's you do just in case you didn't know. Just F1 film.
Do you have a favorite Jerry Bruckheimer movie?
Probably Top Gun.
I would go The Rock. Don't get me wrong. I do love Top Gun. Top Gun's great, but The Rock is just amazing.
I think there's something about The Rock that maybe is a cultural reference point I didn't really get. I'm also not a fan of Nick Cage.
It's Nicolas Cage.
I know. He tries too hard.
Have you watched The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
No, I have not.
You should watch that. If you are not the biggest fan of Nick Cage, you should watch the movie about how great Nick Cage is.
Does he poke fun at himself in it?
Very much so. It is very fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Okay. Also this week, Aston Martin proved that they are in fact actually a serious F1 team, I think, kind of, by starting their own driver academy. I don't know who they're going to put into it. Maybe they'll get a rookie like a Fernando Alonso who can progress to the full team.
Or maybe they need a mentor of an older driver like a Lance Stroll to like help them with the day in and day outs of getting an F3 championship and
okay.
So
that
maybe it's a good little like project for Lance to run because while this might be a sign that they are a serious team, they still employ Lance and an old man,
which means they're not a serious team.
Yeah.
But we'll see. There's always next year.
Maybe they realize the writing's on the wall and they have to actually be a serious team.
True. But maybe this is the thing, because I'm so cynical. This is the kind of thing that a company does. We're like, oh, we're going to start the new blah, 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 internships, blah, 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 etc. And it's just an excuse to look good, and they do nothing with it, and nobody ever gets to drive. Because reality at this point, Lance Stroll is going to be driving when he's 65 because it's his dad's team, and probably his team at that point, and he's not going to give up, so there's only one seat. It's almost like you're in the Red Bull Drivers Academy.
Well, that's going to be an interesting question, because I assume Lawrence will be dead by then. So...
No. He probably has the blood of young children directly injected into his veins to make sure that
he's got a blood boy?
He probably does. He's probably friends with Larry Ellison, who definitely has a blood boy. Anyway,
so that might even actually be a thing.
Yeah, no, it really might be. Apparently, Larry Ellison took like a hilarious amount of money, like multiple billions of dollars, and invested it in a special institute called I can't remember what it's called now.
Called the Blood Boy Institute?
Called the Blood Boy Institute, whose sole purpose is extending human life, except he's the only donor, and effectively he has exclusive rights to whatever comes out of it. It is solely his attempt to live forever.
There is nothing more hilarious to me than rich people who realize they can't buy their way out of death.
Indeed, but he's trying extremely hard.
Yeah, and guess what? It's not going to work.
Not yet.
Maybe you should have tried to do something else about your legacy instead of just hoarding wealth.
Indeed, he did buy a MiG-29 so that he could fly that around. Anyway, so on big news from the FIA, they released, I have not read it because I have better things to do with my life, the driver penalty guide. And this is the guide on how they adjudicate during races, how they ascribe penalties.
I'm going to assume that it says max +1, or British drivers -1.
I think that's probably about right.
Yeah.
I do think it was quite funny because I'm like, what do you mean it's not already public? I just assumed this was part of the sporting guidelines, but apparently not. Because if there's one thing that's true is you have the official documentation, then you have the real documentation. And then last but not least, a name that we have not heard for such a long time, and it cast an echo through the paddock as we realised the greatness that was involved. Sergio Perez came out saying he knows that Red Bull now regrets firing him. And it's all because, everybody else who's driven that car is terrible at it. And I saw a really great quote on one of the Reddits that was basically, just because somebody is terrible, it's equally terrible as the person prior to them in the seat, it does not absolve the person who was previously in the seat from also being terrible. And I think that is accurate. And nothing absolves Sergio Perez from being crap in that car.
There was one take that I am not sure how fair it is, but I think you can say it is a very fair take, that if Max Verstappen was not in the Red Bull, they would be last in the constructors' standings.
Perfect.
Which I think is a little unfair because, Max was there. Max was sucking up some points. Hold on. I can see exactly how fair this is. We can actually figure this out. Because we know that Yuki and Liam were not doing great. And they really weren't scoring points, right? So the real question is, how many times did Liam or Yuki finish 11th? Okay, so essentially if I took Max out and we put one of them in and assume that they're not going to finish in the points, how would it change? So Yuki goes from a 9th to an 8th and then 2 9ths. So yeah, he was in the Red Bull in that seat. So yeah, he would have gone from 9th to 8th, so he would have had +2 points, so he would have 12. And then, so we would have had 14 points. So they'd be second to last. by 3 points behind Alpine, or ahead of Alpine.
Oh, that sucks for Alpine.
And they'd have half the points of Kick Sauber in 8th at that point.
That's pretty terrible.
So yeah, it's. I don't think it's quite that bad that the Red Bull would be the worst car, but it definitely would be. They would be on track to be the worst car, or they'd be fighting for the worst car at that point in time, given their current driver lineup, who would likely be in the seats and the pace of that car. That is not a quick that which just makes me wonder, like, how otherworldly is Max? Could we put him in any other car and see what happens? Because, like, what?
Yeah, I that's what I need to see. And I say this both because we have a stupid podcast, but also I deeply believe they should put Max in the Racing Bulls.
Well, I mean, Racing Bulls, did they have a double points finish today?
I don't think they did. I don't think Isaac made it.
He was 12th, yeah.
Yeah. I think they should
But
swap.
Liam was 6th.
Yeah, I can't believe Liam did that. I have a whole confusion about that. That's very confusing. But we'll save that for the race. I do think that they should put Max in that car. Like, at this point, remember, Red Bull drivers are contracted with Red Bull, not with a specific team. And so they should put him in that car, and we can see how well he does. Like, just go for it. They've nothing to lose.
Well, the other rumor circulating around this week was that they are actually Mercedes is having conversations with Max Verstappen, and that is why George does not have a contract yet, and that it looks like Mercedes is trying to lure Max away from Red Bull, which
seems pretty easy at this point.
Yeah, so it's like at that point, like, if you're Red Bull, do you want to admit defeat that much and put him in a Racing Bull?
Yeah, because if he does really well in it, maybe you can say that and keep him.
Yeah, but that would mean that the technical, because, like, they are separate technical teams. Like, don't forget that. Like, despite them being a junior team, and I know that, like, they do share, like, a little bit of part knowledge here and there, but you are essentially admitting that the main Red Bull team that has all the focus and money has no engineering know-how.
Yeah, but which do you want? Do you want the championship, or do you want the I'm trying to think of the right way of saying it, the saving of your face? I think I'd rather have the championship.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd get the championship at that point in time. I don't think Max can drive that Racing Bull any better than he can drive the Red Bull.
Yeah, I know, but it's so much better. He'd be out front. He'd be winning.
No, I don't think he would. I think as we talked about that car before, it's a very easy car to drive in the sense of it's a car that, like, you can get decent pace out of, and it can make Q3 appearances, but I don't think it can be at the pointy end week in and week out.
You're making the statement that the Red Bull, despite being terrible and difficult to drive, has a higher peak performance than the Red Bull racing car, even with Max driving it.
Yes.
Okay, great. Speaking of people having jobs, shall we see if anybody still has a job?
Well, somehow the whole Red Bull engineering team does.
Yeah, that's a shocker. It's terrible. It's not good. At this point, any driver that's in a Red Bull, also, you question whether they have a job, either by their own choice or because they got fired.
Yeah, but at this point, like, honestly, it's not Yuki's fault. It's not Liam's fault. Like,
that's what the review.
It's not Alex Albon's fault. Like, the dude's been, except for Williams having the no good, terrible, most bad weekend of all time. Like, Alex has been driving great since he left Red Bull. Like, it's not any of the drivers' fault. Like, to some respects, like, if they had just kept Daniel Ricciardo, maybe would they still be in a really bad state? Like, you don't know, because the Honey Badger still had his confidence before he got beaten out of him at McLaren.
Here's an interesting statement. Christian Horner was on the interview circuit this weekend after the race, and he made a statement about Yuki and said, while we understand the car is difficult to drive, it's not that difficult, and we will have to analyze his performance this weekend. And I think that is absolutely unfair, because the car is clearly undrivable.
I think it might have been the first time Christian Horner looked at the second car in, like, maybe 3 years.
Yeah, truth. Because he had to, because Max wasn't in there anymore.
Yeah. So this broke Max's, like, 33 consecutive points finishing streaks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So go back 32 races was the last time he probably looked at the number 2 car.
That was probably right when Perez fell off the.
Yeah, something around those lines, yeah.
Also this week, Fred Vasseur got hit-jobbed by the Italian press. This is before he wasn't at the track this weekend, because apparently maybe a rumour of a death in the family and he had to leave. But he had, like, multiple stories this week saying how Fred is completely screwed and he needs to be gone because it's all his fault. It was just, irrespective of what you might feel about him, it was clearly someone writing a hit job, like, more so than I think the normal. And I think that's a little unfair when people decide that they're going to write a hit job just specifically for column inches and the clicks.
How long has Fred been at Ferrari? 2 years?
He was not there in 22. He joined, I think actually maybe 24.
Yeah, I think this is only his second season. Like,
yeah.
I hate this concept of like, it's also kind of how I feel about like NFL coaches, where like you're firing somebody who's trying to totally rebuild your organization with a brand new scheme after like one bad season. Like, okay, maybe they made some mistakes along the way, but if you were an organization and you hire a coach who's trying to rebuild it and you're still a organization, it might take a couple of years for like that to go away. As we mentioned, we both live in the Pacific Northwest, and like if you go back and look at when Pete Carroll was hired as the Seahawks head coach and like look at like the first couple drafts, everybody was like, he's picking the worst draft picks, these are some terrible names, it's not going to go well, how could he pass up on this individual and take this individual instead? But it turned out like all the people he'd taken built that defense that won the Super Bowl. So it does help.
He joined in 2023. 2023 was his first season. So he's had 2.5 seasons.
So, but then my question would be kind of what the point Fred made like a couple races ago or podcasts ago was, they've changed everything at Ferrari but one thing. Like, who do you expect to put in there and get different results? Like, Lewis had an argument with his race engineer on the radio today. Like, of like, hey, so no, why don't I try to stay out? Why don't we do this? Like, it's. And what's her name? Bernie had like a great comment about Ferrari strategy, and it's like they have run the race simulation to figure out what is the fastest way to do something, and will not deviate from that plan.
And it is the mistake that I'm going to draw an analogy. It's the same mistake that Apple Maps makes. It always picks the fastest route by what it's calculated as the fastest route.
Did you get stuck in 405 traffic yesterday?
No. It actually did me a solid and took me in the right direction. It was perfect. But it always calculates the fastest route. And actually, sometimes that's not the best route. And those are two different statements. And Ferrari keep picking the fastest one. And that's not necessarily what you need to win. You need the best strategy.
Yeah, and kind of to Lewis's point, I know we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit. Like, he had a pit stop gap over George before George pit. He was in clear air. Why not try to make the one stop work a little bit? Like it doesn't hurt anything to try it, because you have a pit stop behind. You're going to finish fourth if you go with the optimal strategy. If you don't, like, maybe something could happen. Like, but at that point you leapfrog Charles, which might not make Charles feel that great, which I understand, but also like let him try it. So
the thing that was so bad about that like was so frustrating as a Lewis booster was less the we want to ignore his strategy. It's the fact that the literal message was, I think my tires are good, could we extend? And instead of replying with, I don't think we should extend, we have additional data, or whatever else is like Bono might have said.
Box.
And he's like, no, what's the gap? How much time have I got? Box, 20 seconds, box. And it was just like, people aren't listening. And I think that is such a flawed way for you to manage as an engineer. To a certain extent, they haven't built the rapport yet, but like, I don't know how you build a rapport when somebody's a douche nozzle.
Well, I have a suggestion, and it's going to fall on absolute deaf ears to Ferrari.
Maybe they're listening. Maybe Fred is taking a break and listening. Hi, Fred.
And it's that English has to become the default language of the Ferrari factory.
I could see that would be a big change. I could see that might make it work. But why do you think that would transform the relationship across the team? And why would you not equally say Lewis should work on the Italian?
Because everything on like the FIA pit wall and everything else, like all the FIA deals in English, just like air traffic control deals in English. Of like, it doesn't matter what country you fly out of, you have to know English. And it's a similar sort of situation that everybody in the FIA has to understand English. All the race control or all the race engineers and stuff on the pit wall talking to the drivers, it's all done in English. And I think there is actually a rule around that. I don't think it's just like for convenience. I think it is like...
Yeah, there was a whole thing where Ferrari got told off for speaking in Italian.
Yeah, but I can imagine, like, you talk about rapport and things like that having a race engineer that speaks the same native language as the driver would be immensely more helpful. But
yeah,
but the thing is, like, because I imagine so much backroom conversation at Ferrari is all done in Italian, and it probably is all done in Italian. But at the end of the day, everything that comes out to the media, to the racing drivers, to the pit wall, it's all done in English. So if Ferrari became English speaking, you could potentially lose some of that lost in translation as you all become higher functioning in that language.
There was the other rumor this week that apparently Ferrari is considering opening up a UK-based office.
Yep.
And in the weirdest way, I feel like this would be like, on the it's a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, I think it could lead to sort of solving some of the problems that you talk about. I also think it would lead to like, oh, that's the UK office. We don't let them do serious things, or we don't listen to what they say. Oh, they've designed the new thing. We don't listen to them. We go talk to, Geppetto in the design office, and we see what Geppetto says because he's looked at it and he's decided if it's good or not.
But it honestly could be good if they actually moved all the F1 operations to Europe and just you leave the Le Mans hypercar division in Italy. You move the F1 division to somewhere in the UK.
Yeah, you can leave the engine in Italy. I think that's a slightly different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Versus all the other stuff, and move the ops and some of the design team, especially Aero, to the UK. It would work great.
Yeah, and have like a conference every 6 months or something where you all get together and have like Ferrari Con where everybody's talking about.
Ferrari. I love it. That's beautiful.
Well, FurCon's probably taken by somebody else.
Yeah. Mix the two. You never know what you might get out of it. Some brand new ideas.
Whole bunch of prancing horses. Anyway,
Brony represent.
But yeah, you end up in a situation where they get together and be like, hey, here's something we found out in aerodynamics that is interesting. Here's something we found out in thermodynamics that's interesting for, brake cooling and stuff. So, you still share ideas across, some sort of hypercar competition and Formula One, but like not necessarily being under the same roof.
I agree. But in the interest of time, we should speed on to the other things.
But the race was boring after the first stint. We're actually getting content.
I know, but we can come back to it because there's some discussion on that. There's some stuff that happened. Just before we close out the people
Lando didn't screw up the aborted start. Good job, Lando.
He read the instructions. One more point. Sorry, I need to get this through because it's important to me. I care about Bottas. Bottas is hinting that he's got the caddy seat because he went and poked his face on a Cadillac and said, "Ooh, isn't that exciting?" So I'm really hopeful that he's in fact secretly got the Cadillac seat.
It wasn't that he got the Cadillac seat; it's that he is willing. I think it was because I don't think Cadillac's close to announcing anybody, or maybe they should. But it was definitely one of those things. Yeah, they really probably should. But it was a great bit on his social media that he's definitely worth some sort of follow. But he and one of his buddies, they walk up to a Cadillac and it's like, "Oh, hey, look at this seat. Oh, that's a very nice seat." It's like, "Is this your seat?" "No, it's not my seat." Be a nice seat to have, though. Like, there's another seat over there. "Oh, yeah, look at 2 seats. How interesting."
Bottas has the best social media content of any current or former F1 driver.
I would say his level of humor is also up there as well.
Yes, I agree.
Probably only matched by Daniel Ricciardo in terms of former F1 drivers.
Possibly true.
Nobody on the current grid is that funny.
No, nobody has a sense of humor.
George thinks he's that funny.
No. Apparently, Isaac is a riot, but he hasn't. He doesn't let it come into the media yet.
Good.
And he's very funny.
Good.
So, okay. Quali recap. It was both fun and utterly forgettable. Carlos's break.
There were some cars out of position. It was a weird grid to look at.
True. It was a little bit of a weird grid. Part of that was Carlos's brakes didn't work, which we will come back to later. And most importantly, I think the F2 demonstrated that once again the Halo was a good idea because, to revert to the comment about Top Gun, they performed a fully inverted barrel roll as they were going through, I think it was turn 3. And I don't know, I couldn't see, I watched it a few times, nobody flipped anybody off, but it was still very impressive.
If you were directly above him, how could you see him? Well, I was inverted.
Exactly. And that's why he crashed into him. Yeah. But that was it for qualifying. Yeah. There wasn't very much. So. Go on to the race. Speaking of brakes, Carlos was on fire.
Yeah.
Probably in the wrong way, in the wrong place, and it all went horribly wrong, and the stewards took a time. So they did a start, and then there was a car left on the grid who was in P19, which is Carlos, because his brakes were broken in the previous one.
And all the mechanics were left on the grid because they couldn't cross because there was still an F1 car there.
Yeah, it was terrible. And it took them a really long time to decide that, in fact, they should abort the start, and they went for a full aborted start with a full reset. But Carlos did actually get moving, and so he drove off at full tilt around the track. And then as he comes into the pit lane, because apparently it means you have to do a pit lane start at that point, there was a lot of smoke. And then he stopped, and both rear brakes literally lit up. They were on fire, and basically it caused unmitigated chaos.
It was a good fire.
It was a lovely fire, and everybody was trying to put the fire out without spraying too much fire extinguisher on it, and everybody was poking at it, and it wasn't really working, and they thought they were going to start it, and then they wheeled it back, and the camera zooms in, and basically 2/3 of the rear wing had been melted. It was ridiculous. And they were like, Carlos, it's the end. And then Carlos was left there, and it sucked for Carlos.
I do have to say, I enjoy the enhanced reliability of Formula One from like an economic standpoint and but
environmental standpoint, safety standpoint.
I miss watching cars go up in flames.
Yes, I
It's
wholly
so
agree
much
with
more
that.
fun when cars went up in flames.
Yes, 100%. I cannot dispute that, and I still think, as we discussed earlier this season, somebody needs a button that you press it and the engine goes up.
Oh, didn't Roman Grosjean had a good quote earlier, like a week or so ago, about like being involved in a fire. Like,
Yes,
I know something about that. Did you see that quote?
I can't remember. I did see that quote, and it was quite funny, but I can't remember it now.
I'm gonna see if I can find
While
it real
you
quick.
search for that, the greatest question was the front row of the grid, because we kind of didn't cover this in quality, was Lando, and then it was not Carlos. It was Leclerc in second, looking pretty. Then it was Piastri, and then Lewis for his, I think, equal highest qualifying of the season for Ferrari. And then it was, you're not going to believe this, people, it was Liam Lawson in sixth. Somehow he out-qualified Max Verstappen. It was, boom, mind-blowing. Clearly Liam is the god. And then the greatest question is this was Lando Norris on front of the pole and next to Charles, and the question is, would he bottle it? And not to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched the race yet, but he didn't bottle it, and it was quite a successful start.
Roman Grosjean was doing some IMSA race, something
He was in a GT3 car, right?
6 hours of Watkins Glen in a Lamborghini, and after his stint, he was I'm absolutely cooked. You know what I'm saying when I say cooked, right?
I know about being cooked.
Yeah, I know what I think he actually said that.
But despite the fact that Mr. Lando Norris did not bottle it, somebody else further down the grid did. And Kimi bottled it, and he bottled it so hard. He was in
Charles bottled
ninth.
it. We forgot about Charles.
Did Charles bottle it?
He was in second, and he came out of turn 1 and third.
Oh, yeah. Shocker. So Charles's curse, Lando now, by the way, has more conversions from a pole to a win than Charles does. So Charles can go back to being the bottler.
Well, to be fair, Max Verstappen has more wins from Charles Leclerc poles than Charles Leclerc does from Charles
I know,
Leclerc
it's lovely.
poles.
I think he has. Does he have more wins from Lando Norris poles?
I don't know about that. I haven't looked at that one.
Okay. But yes, anyway, Charles bottled it and ended up in third. And to be fair, George kind of shot up from nowhere and thought he was going to take a bunch of stuff. And he actually overtook Lewis, but then Lewis got it back.
He and Lewis were really pushing each other there for a while. And it was like, oh, this could be good. And then everybody started managing.
It was classic George. I've got the speed. I'm going to push it, because you can on the first lap. And, you can just hear the radio and blah, 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 blah. And it's just the fact that you're like, I was watching and I'm like, George is going to fall back because he's going to have tried too hard and his tires are going to be shot. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yeah, I almost messaged you how long until George destroys his tires.
Apparently less than a lap. It was great.
The tire whisperer.
The tire whisperer. He whispers sweet nothing into them and scares them off.
But Kimi totally misjudged that turn 3.
Oh, Kimi comes straight down the inside. I don't know quite what he was thinking. And just basically gets surprised by, I think, it wasn't Hadjar, it was Lawson in front of him, pulls to the side and is clearly just panicked and slammed his anchors on, and all four wheels light up, and then he barrel rolls straight into one Max Verstappen.
He is a passenger at that point in time.
He is a passenger point. And I thought it was great because he did his media interview that you eventually heard halfway through the race. The question was, did you go in too fast? And then Kimi immediately, without hesitation, was like, no. I locked the rears and then the fronts. And then I was going too fast, but we will move forward as a team. And I was like, no, Kimi, the answer here is, I went in too fast. I'll have to go over this and sort my life out. Sorry about that.
That's a driver who's had a good amount of media training.
Yeah, he's embraced the media training, but has also missed the fact that sometimes you should ignore the media training.
And also, great job, Max Verstappen, for being involved in an incident and not getting a penalty point.
Yeah, good job. I was surprised by that. I kind of thought he was about to get it because, like, Max was on the track, 5 penalty points.
Yeah, it could have been like that, yeah.
Yeah. But Kimi did get 3 penalty points.
Oh.
Sorry, 3 place
two
grid
penalty points.
2 penalty points and a 3-place grid penalty for the next race, which is great.
I'm actually slightly surprised by that because normally they let, like, lap 1 incidents go. I guess it wasn't lap 1, turn 1, which is where they really let everything go.
I thought about that, but having seen the replay a number of times, like,
it was bad.
Screwed up. It was really bad. It was rookie mistake, unquestionably.
It's lucky it was only 2 cars that got taken out. It could have been like 5.
Yeah, that would have been really bad. And also credit to Max. I think Max in previous years would have gotten out and been pretty angry. Max is not someone who goes up and punches somebody else like George Russell does.
Sure.
He just goes up and punches them.
But then
Max
he got to go back and watch the 24-hour of Spa. So he was happy. He didn't even watch the Australian Grand Prix. He watched 24 hours of Spa.
You say Australian Grand Prix. I've spent all week seeing the headlines, and I'm like, we're back in Australia again? No, wait, Austria. So yeah, Kimi bad. Kimi did bad.
This is something I was going to talk about later, but we already talked about the other thing I was going to talk about later. Did Kimi just crash into his new teammate? And that's maybe why Max was so unbothered by this?
100%.
Because
Max...
like part of this is like it hasn't been going well for Max in the championship, but he was still like somewhat in it. This really like takes him. It's gonna be quite the Herculean effort to win this championship if you're Max in that Red Bull, given how crap that Red Bull looks like. We know Mercedes and Max have been having talks. We know there's some sort of exit clause. This did not help Max or Red Bull in any way. Like. Try to keep Max. It's almost if you wanted to say like the fix was in of like, hey, Kimi, go crash out Max just to like hurt his championship. Like, I don't think that's what happened, but man, I could almost believe it.
And Max in his post crash interviews was really nice about Kim. He's like, these things happen. Nobody ever does it on purpose. And now that you've said that, I'm convinced that that's exactly what's going on. Max knows that he's going to be Kimi's partner next year. And therefore, he needs to keep it in a good. He needs to have a good relationship with his teammate. There's no point in being adversarial with your teammate and keeping it all happy and positive. And that's what he's doing.
Yeah, George is now only 9 points behind Max for 3rd place.
9 points. Anyway, so Kimi banged into everybody. Did we get a safety car? We did get a safety car.
We did. It was a short safety car, but it was a safety car.
Safety car.
Yeah, this on like the shortest track on the calendar, or one of the shortest tracks on the calendar, is somehow how we had the least amount of time behind the safety car in like the last couple of safety car periods.
It's because they know what they're doing at this track. It's they've been doing it long enough that they can sign up till 2041.
Just kick it down the hill or something. The car.
Exactly, it'll roll down the hill, no problem. But then after the restart, Oscar did some really great attempts at trying to get Lando, and I thought this was a great example of the difference between Oscar and Lando. And Oscar did that thing that you need to do, which is push the other driver to make a mistake and then back off a little bit and then push them again and then make a little bit of a mistake. I thought he did a pretty good job.
He did a great job.
Into Lando.
I think he did the classic Austria mistake of passing into turn 3 and giving the other car side-by-side DRS down the straight. And I think... And he never really got another shot after that. He got kind of close a couple times. But he never really had another shot after that. And I think if he would have gotten that done right or had another shot after that, I think we'd be talking about a different race winner today.
Yeah. But I was very impressed with that, and that was great. And then there were some other cars somewhere else in the race because the gap from the McLarens was hilarious. It was often like 20 seconds.
Yeah. Yuki hit Colapinto. Colapinto went off spinning.
Yeah, that was a bit of a whoopsie. And then Franco and Oliver Behrman had an incident too.
Yuki ended up with Pierre Gasly amount of penalties.
He did. Was it 10 seconds of penalties?
I think he had 15 seconds of penalties overall.
Oh.
Because there was another incident he was involved in, I think, with Lance Stroll. Did he get any penalty points? Because this will be interesting, given, like... Let's go look.
While you do that, just to recap, Franco and Yuki had it coming together. Franco and Oliver Behrman had it coming together. I think Franco and Stroll had it coming together. And then also, Franco did not see Oscar when Oscar was coming up behind him to lap him and basically pushed Oscar onto the grass verge. The question is at this point, is Franco the problem? Because I think Franco might be the problem. Which means he's gearing up to be asked to drive it into a wall by Flavio Briatore to enable Pierre Gasly to have a win this season.
Hey, what are the odds of that happening?
Very, very low. Or high, depending on how you look at it.
What's Yuki's number? Do you know what Yuki's number is?
10.
10? Thank you.
Yep. Why do I have these facts in my head?
There are no decision documents around car 10. You sure it's car 10?
No, that's Pierre Gasly. I'm sorry. 11.
Nope.
No. 22.
22? Okay. Decision car 22 causing a collision with car 43. I think that's the Lance Stroll incident.
Yeah. No, that 43 is Franco.
Oh, so it was
Lance
Franco.
is 18.
Yep. That was a 10-second time penalty and 2 points for causing a collision with car number 43 in turn 4. Yeah, that would have been Franco. And then car 12 causing a... car 22. Forcing car 18 off the track.
Stroll.
No further action. Interesting.
It's that British bias again.
Something like that. There's one document in here in the FIA documents that race director events notes version 3. I'm really just surprised it's not final, absolute final or something like that.
See, this is why I can't be allowed to be in any official position like that, because I'd be like, it'd be fun this weekend, people. Let's just record different versions. Let's do final version 2. It'd be amazing. Everybody's going to find it hilarious. And they'd be like, Dominic, there are like 8 people on this planet who would find that funny, and it's none of us.
I disagree. There's only 8 people. I think anybody that works in some sort of like corporate situation where you need a document revised, like lawyers would find it funny because I know they're in that realm.
True.
It's less of an issue when we're doing, like, my company does a lot of our work on Google Drive, so you get a little less of the final version 3 final sort of stuff. But yeah, there's sometimes a lot of that going on.
One of my favorite ones is final not for sharing. It's like, and here I am reading it. I'm thinking there's something wrong.
Well, you wrote it, obviously.
Oh, it must have been me. To be brutally honest, I would never be that person. I will never do the final version, blah, blah. I will it's the original document. If you want it, it's in the version history. Should we do driver of the day / who couldn't wait for it to be over?
You had a note here that I don't think we talked about, or I was looking at an FIA doc at the time that said Merck didn't fix their hot weather problems.
Oh, no, you are correct. Yes. Last week, Toto was like, I feel vindicated. We've spent the last 2 years working with a car that doesn't work in hot weather, and we finally nailed it because look how we did in Canada. It was amazing. Hot weather, it was perfect. And then this weekend where it's hotter, the car was absolutely terrible. It was lovely. Merck still can't build a car.
Your Toto sounds a lot more, I would say, Midlands-y than Austrian-y.
I was going for, a little bit East End like,
Yeah.
Let me try that again. So, our car works great in the hot weather now. We have 60 problem. It's not good. We are good now, yeah. And then this one is like, oh no, we are fucked again. Oh no, that'll be good.
Yeah, that's more Sacha Baron Cohen's Bruno than anything else.
Yeah, it is. I'm going off that. This is why I'm going to get in trouble for my accents making fun of other people's accents.
Oh, yes. But our 3 listeners will be amused.
Perfect. Until it shows up when I run for office.
Hey, maybe this is the thing that gets our podcast to go viral and listeners about Formula 1. Dominic's terrible impressions that might be slightly racist.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. It's perfect. Anyway, driver of the day who couldn't wait for it to be over. My driver of the day for Oscar because he's simply lovely. I really need him to win the championship this year.
He's looking good.
Yeah, sadly the last 2 weekends have not been great for him, but I'm hoping he can pull it out for Silverstone. Actually, I'm going to say this. If Lewis can't win Silverstone, I need Oscar to win it.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet for... I think, honestly, at this point, picking Oscar for any race win in the future is just... That's a good bet.
He's the only driver this year who started in the top 4 in every race.
Yeah, these are the kind of stats that win you championships. You might not win every week, but these are the stats that win you championships.
Better than driving into the back of your teammate because there's a gap there that doesn't exist. Anyway, speaking of driver who couldn't wait for it to be over...
Are you suggesting Lando Norris should no longer be a racing driver?
No comment.
Because he went for a gap that didn't exist, so then he should know...
No comment. I did not wish to anger... It's one thing to anger people with suspicious accents. It's another one to piss off Lando fans.
You think any of them listen to this podcast?
Clearly.
Yeah.
Someone must do somewhere. Anyway, driver who couldn't wait for it to be over with Yuki because basically his race was terrible, and channeling your inner statement that they must be classified. I would have otherwise picked Carlos because he couldn't be bothered to start the race.
To be fair, that is my own criteria of they must be classified. You have chosen unclassified drivers several times.
I know, but I feel I should embrace that because I think that's a fair rule.
Because I would have said Max because he wanted to go watch the 24-hour of Spa, and he did.
Brutal. What about your driver of the day?
I also went with Oscar. I thought about giving it to somebody not Oscar, but I thought Oscar absolutely had the best race. I think this was something that I want to talk about during the race, but we were all over the place. I think he got a little screwed over by McLaren today after the Turn 4 incident. Or not incident, but close call. Because he had a...
They both had bad pit stops.
Both had bad pit stops. But I think it was, let's leave Oscar out for a couple more laps. Like, oh, hey, man, you're in free air. You want to see what you can do? Yeah, we know the faster tire is going to be the undercut at Austria. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
And leaving him out for 4 laps and then also having an equally crappy pit stop. Actually, it was even worse than Lando's. Like, put it down to 6.6 seconds. That over the next 2 stints, he clawed back to 1.8, 1.7 by the end. So I think they were trying to build in a buffer there to not necessarily protect or save Lando, but like just to make sure that both cars finish the race.
Yeah.
I think they were going to let them both, because they were clearly letting them race well in the first stint, but it was just, okay, that was too close. Let's artificially build a buffer between the cars. And that gap did not stay out. It crawled back slowly, which leads me to my driver who couldn't wait for their day to be over, and I picked Lando Norris because although he won inside the last 15 laps, I think there were 2 radio calls that got aired of there was one that sounded absolutely defeatist, which was, is he just faster everywhere now? So it was he clearly knew Oscar was coming and Oscar was faster than him in every part of the track. And it was like, no, he's really just faster in the high speeds. But all you need to do is be faster over one spot of the track, like than than the car you're chasing down, and you will catch them. And he was catching them. So, I went with Lando. Couldn't wait for his day to be over because he was catching traffic. Oscar was catching him, and it was one of those, come on, how many more laps do we have to do this? Let's be done. I would like to be done. So I picked Lando as my driver who couldn't wait for their day to be over.
I can subscribe to that theory. That is absolutely perfect. It is the epitome of who couldn't wait for it to be over because they really needed it to be over.
Thank you. I thought for a good 30 seconds on that one.
That's a long time.
I know.
Which team's debrief would you like to be in? I would like to be in the Williams one because it was such a bad race because I don't think we talked about it, but Albon also DNF'd after a pit stop. He did one more lap and they pulled him in. Temperatures were too high. I'm not quite sure what was going on. But it was a really bad weekend. And I would like to extend the belief that the contract curse applies to also team principals. Because every driver who's trying to get a contract drives like amazing. And then once they've signed the contract, terrible.
Right.
Same happened to James Vowles. He had just the great start of the season up till race 9. Brilliant. But ever since Barcelona, terrible. Terrible. And it was really bad for them this weekend.
But this also goes back to that Mercedes power unit does not work well in hot weather. I know Carlos's brakes were not made by a Mercedes power unit, but it was stuck in first gear. Could have been an engine issue.
Could have been
a
gearbox issue.
Yeah.
Because I think they also have Merc gearboxes now.
Yeah.
They used to make their own. What about you? Who do you want to be in?
I want to be in Ferrari just to hear Lewis go off about the why couldn't I extend.
They need to get some respect for that, man.
I was so surprised to see Charles in the podium interviews because I forgot he was in the race.
Oh, that's brutal. That is brutal.
I'm like, oh wait, because like they showed Lewis a couple times.
Yeah.
There was a lot of footage of the McLarens. There was a lot of footage of like the Saubas doing stuff in the midfield, but like the Ferraris and George were just like totally forgotten about from a TV broadcast perspective. And to be fair, that was the right call because there were like just 10 seconds between each of those cars just off in their own little worlds. Like, yeah, no, I agree. Don't show them. But it's like, Charles is on the podium? Oh yeah, that makes sense. He was in third the whole race just doing nothing. Like,
You did remind me that I don't think I remember, other than the first like 5 laps, I don't think I ever remember seeing George ever again.
Yeah.
It's great.
Maybe for like a pit stop, they filmed one of them or something, but like,
maybe.
But we didn't even get an angsty George radio about like how he's pushing hard or something like that, or what's going on, guys.
It was great.
But Lando literally asking for driver coaching on the radio. Ooh.
I have a strong opinion. Actually, let's briefly skip forward to spicy takes and rumors.
We just have to say the championship watch. Max is third, 9 points ahead of George. Will he end up in a Mercedes? It's really the Max going to Mercedes watch at this point.
Exactly. Spicy takes and rumors.
And a McLaren driver will win the championship at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
oh man, what was my spicy take? I had a spicy take and it's gone. What were we talking about? Ferrari drivers, George.
TV direction, Charles in third. George whining on the radio. Lando getting driver coaching.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Driver coaching. Okay, great. I believe that you should be banned from getting driver coaching on the radio. Because remember when Lando got his first podium in Austria, because he got so much coaching, they left a bit, right a bit, up a bit, fast a bit, down a bit, lower a bit, brake a bit. I think it should be banned because I think you can have it during free practice, and I think it's probably also okay during quali. But in the race, you shouldn't be giving them coaching. But you can say you're faster here, you're slower here, but you shouldn't be saying things like you should brake a bit later or you should do this. I feel like it just defeats the purpose of having the driver in the car. Like, that's the Ferrari thing. The Ferrari just treat you as an automaton that gets in the car and turns left and right.
Well, it does make Niki Lauda's quote make a lot more sense for Ferrari of like, take a trained monkey, put him in the car. Like, that very well seems to be how Ferrari treat their drivers of like, look at these wonderful 2 trained monkeys we have.
Yeah. That's my spicy take.
My only putting on my official hat for a minute. The only I love the idea, but I just don't know how you codify it in such a way that makes sense. And
very difficult to enforce.
Like that's the problem with it. Because I'd even say, because there was a time where they banned like team, it wasn't team radio. It was like team directions or something like that.
Yeah, team orders got
banned. Team orders. That's what it was when they banned team orders, and it was Fernando is faster than you. Confirm you understand.
That's clear. That's absolute. There's no way. There's no chance that was a secret coded message. I mean, of all the teams who would never do a secret coded message, it would be Ferrari. They're just so straight and above the board.
Yeah, but it's how do you codify it in such a way that's not like, that
abusable.
Yeah,
ambiguity, abused by both sides. People who say, "Well, they got coaching. Well, I didn't get coaching. You got coaching. I didn't get coaching," etc., etc. Becomes a pantomime. It's a perfect Christmas thing. Oh, you got some coaching. Oh no, he didn't.
Now it'd be better if proximity chat became a thing.
I still think that's a great idea.
Or proximity chat in a way of like, you and like the 2 cars in front of you or behind you are like all on the same radio channel with the same engineers.
Oh.
So
I do believe we should, just like we have DRS, we should have proximity chat.
Yeah. Proximity chat would be hilarious.
Imagine you coming up behind them, you get your DRS, you press it and open, and you're like, I'm going to go left. Do you, as the driver in front, do you believe them? Do you believe them the 6 times that they've done it and they follow it, and then the 7th time they do it? I love it. It's just absolutely an idea.
Well, then there's also like all the times where it's like, don't talk to me in the braking zone sort of thing from the race engineers. And I can just imagine like right about as the driver's going to hit the brake, you just go like, burp. It's like,
what?
Yeah.
You're right behind Kimi Antonelli, and he's coming into the braking zone. I mean, he doesn't need any help in screwing up the braking zone, especially after this weekend. But you come up right behind him, and you got your proximity chat, and the first thing you say is like, "Can you even grow a beard?" And then just abuse all the way. Perfect.
Whoever could do like the best sound of like engine failures on the chat, who could imitate a turbo blowing up the best?
That would be perfect.
Just oh no, is my turbo you lift off for a second because you think your turbo's blown up and this car comes screaming by you.
I think there's so much opportunity here that we're missing out on.
Yeah.
Do you wish to discuss the fact that the Red Bull is a terrible car?
We've mentioned it. I think honest question, in the 10 cars that are on the grid, where do you think that car is in terms of like ranking all the cars? Where do you think it is?
By which criteria? Because you've made the point earlier that it has a higher peak performance. We're talking about peak performance.
I just think performance, like not peak. I think you can get more.
Okay, average performance.
Because I'm not
average performance with an average driver.
Because I'm not going to be so sure as like I know the claim I made earlier, and I still stand by it. But it's also I'm not also going to say that if you put Max in the Racing Bull, he couldn't beat any driver who replaced him in that Red Bull. Because the only way to really compare it would be to put Max in a Red Bull and Max in a Racing Bull at the same time. And we only have one Max Verstappen, despite how much Red Bull would love to clone him.
Yes. I don't think it's the worst, but I also think it is pretty bad. Like, I don't actually think it's as good as the Aston Martin. I think it's worse than the Aston Martin. And I think it's probably better, or has been better this weekend, outstanding, because Gabriele Bortoleto got his first points. And the other Sauber with Hulkenberg in it did some great performance too. I think it's better than the Sauber, although that might change over the next few weeks. So that's where I'd put it. So an 8th, maybe? 7th, maybe?
I was thinking 8th. I'd put it ahead of the Alpine and...
Oh, I forgot about the Alpine. Yeah.
Like, it's clearly not better than the Mercedes, the Ferrari, or the McLaren.
No.
I don't think it's better than the Williams.
No, I don't. I agree with that. That's definitely true. Well, unless, the brakes are on. Then the brakes are broken, then it's bad.
Like, I think it's honestly got to be, like... I think the only car that I can definitely say is worse is the Alpine.
Good job, Alpine. Sometimes when you fire, you see you.
And even then, Alpine's had a 7th and an 8th, which is better than the second driver at Red Bull's been able to do all season.
Yeah.
So it could be 10th.
That's why they should put Max in the Racing Bull. There's no disadvantage to doing it.
I think if you're putting Max in the Racing Bull, you've just admitted he is not racing for a Red Bull in 2026.
Well, maybe he's racing for the Racing Bulls in 2026.
Could be. Like, that car must have, like, the Red Bull must have, like, the most narrow operating window of any car.
Even narrower than remember the Mercedes with the Zero Pods had a very narrow operating window? I think it's even narrower than that. Or more accurately, even if it's not as narrow, the moment it falls out, its drop-off is significant than the other one when it dropped out of that operating.
Yeah, we've seen that with even how great Max can hustle that car around, that if as soon as he, like, fully eats all the life out of the tires, he has no pace.
Shall we talk about the predictions for the Formula One Qatar Airways British Grand Prix 2025? I
really don't like foreign advertisements for an F1 race.
Foreign to the country in which the race is being hosted.
Yes, because one of the things that I think is great about a world championship, and I've said this in several occasions, like, I love when Mexico puts their own flair on, like, the Formula One theme and things like this. I love when countries do, like, hey, we're going to take the Formula One thing and we're going to make it culturally ours. And I think that's awesome. I don't like... I would love a British company to be sponsoring the British Grand Prix.
That is to say that you would only allow Heineken to sponsor in Zandvoort.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
And I kind of wholly support that. I think that makes sense. And the question is,
well, at least as like a title sponsor, like, you can see Heineken ads, but like, as if there was going to be a Heineken Grand Prix, it would be the Dutch Grand Prix.
No, except it's actually the Emilia Romagna.
Sure.
I don't know why they did that, but yes, I agree with that.
AWS might have a data center in Italy, so, like, I can give Imola a small pass, maybe, but I don't think. I don't think EU Central is in Frankfurt.
Exactly.
AWS data regions. I'm curious, but it's sponsored by Qatar, and that's not as fun as, like, But granted, who would sponsor?
Yorkshire Tea.
There you go.
Twiglets.
Milan. AWS has a Milan. There's 3 availability zones. Which actually, that's a great sponsor of Imola, because Imola is somewhat near Le Mans. Or not. Imola is near Milan. Not Le Mans, Milan.
Not Mulan.
And it launched in 2020, so that's a great thing of, like, hey, guess what? We're now an AWS region near you. That's fantastic. So I will let that advertising pass.
So within 150 miles, that's probably too far. Within 50 miles of any racetrack, if you have a business established, you can sponsor. So, in the case of Qatar, they might be based in Heathrow, but Silverstone's probably more than 50 miles from Heathrow.
Yeah, but
so they couldn't sponsor at that point. It'd be okay.
Does Qatar do they count London as one of their hubs? I don't think so.
But they have a business presence, though.
Their headquarters is in Doha.
Yes,
which makes sense, and their hub is Hamad International Airport in Doha. So they don't count London Heathrow as a hub.
No, but they have a business presence. They have a lot of check-in desks and they have a lot of planes.
Yeah, that's not a hub. That's just a focus city.
I know, but it's a business presence. Anyway, we should get to the end of this. My predictions for the Formula One Qatari Airways British Grand Prix is that Lewis will win once more to make it, I think, 10 times, because it would be awesome for him to win at Silverstone. And as I said earlier, the only other acceptable winner I will accept is Oscar Piastri. But my prediction is that Lewis wins because, of course, he will. Home race advantage.
I would love for Lewis to win, become a 10-time Great Britain's Grand Prix winner, and then just retire.
I could subscribe to that after his 45-minute... Yeah, 45 minutes going around standing on the podium. It's like, Lewis, how do you feel about the next race? You're like, I'm going home.
Yep, I'm done.
Who would you replace him with? Ollie Behrman?
Arthur Leclerc.
Okay, good choice.
Yeah, get the Leclerc brothers in. We never got the Schumachers together. We'll get the Leclercs together.
Yeah, okay, good choice. So your prediction is then Lewis will retire after winning his 10th race.
It won't happen. One of my predictions is please rain in the long-term forecast. It currently does. There is rain in the radar, so we'll see, or not in the radar, but in the forecast, we'll see if it happens. I'll say Oscar extends his lead, so I think he will place higher than Lando, and I will say George is the best in the Battle of the Brits.
Ooh, so you're suggesting that George will be in front of Lando and Ollie and Lewis, and have we got any other British drivers on the grid?
How do you feel about Alex Albon?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. He rises under the Thai
He
flag,
does race under a Taiwanese flag. Not Taiwanese. Thailand.
Thailand. Jesus. Talk about getting us cancelled.
Once again, we are waiting for your feedback. If you think Dominic should be canceled, please write in at feedback@tinfoilhelmets.com and let us know your conspiracy theories, feedback, and wants. Also, tell your friends to like, rate, listen, and subscribe. Do you think if I didn't count for you, you would remember the numbers in the proper order?
Yes, but I would struggle to remember the first one. It's surprising how much I forget the stupid things in life.
I'm just surprised you don't go 6-4-2.
I don't get it.
Because I do it with both hands.
Oh, you see, again, that's not that clever.
Yeah.
I need a calculator. I can't do mathematics. I have to get a calculator. Like, he's got 2 3s. 3 plus 3, 6.
And if you put this in at the end of the show, it's a great visual bit that nobody will ever see.